Hi, how's it going, everybody? My name is Brandon. I just got completed with my first week of accepting the challenge of 8 weeks to seal fit from Mark Divine. Got the guide here and everything to go off of. So pretty much decided to start this routine and make this video because I saw a lot of mixed results on what it could produce in the long term. And I've always been a fan of reading the other books by Mark Divine as well. Got the Way of the Seal here, read twice at this point, and also listened to the audiobook. Really good read, I recommend as well. And also have the Unbeatable Mind as well. Both I recommend. Just to give a little background about my physical journey so far, just to keep a comparison as well. Not military associated at all, so I can't really decipher if this would be a good training program for that or not. That'd be something else to look into detail about. Really what I'm trying to go with this program to find out is if it'll help my personal goals. For first off, trying to see if I can lower my 5K running time. Just to give a little bit of insight about that. Typically, my 5K time is around 21:18 at best, and I'm looking to see if I could drop it below the 20-minute mark. Also, I'm going to see for the longer haul if it'll help with one of my personal workouts that I use to train for races. Pretty much just called the Beast workout. Summarize that one. It's about 15 miles of just a bunch of exercises thrown in. And I've done this a couple times over the years, and my best time attempt for it is about 3 hours and 10 minutes. And ideally, I'm looking to see if I can drop that, about 3 hours or less, see if this program would help in that as well. Just for more of my physical background, I've been training and doing races, OCR races that is, and road races since 2012. At current stage right now, I've done well over 15 Spartan races. The longest distance I've done is a Beast. Typically, I compete in the age group category, and sometimes I do a couple of team attempts as well. Just another thing to read off, I've completed a road race marathon. Not exactly the front of the pack on that one, but I have completed one. And when I run typical road races and trail races, I always come in the top 10 category and usually placed within my age group. Also to add to that, I have won a 5K nighttime trail race as well. My typical running mile time, it's about anywhere between 7 to 8 minutes depending on the terrain. And if I go all out on just a 5K, I can drop it below 7. I think the best I've ever gotten on a strict mile was about 6:20 to 6:30 for just 1 mile. And also when it comes to my general training in the gym, I can heavy lift. I don't really do too much of it. I don't really have like a 1 rep max I keep up with, anything like that. Most of my training is I hate to say it, CrossFit or routine style, just a large, long, workload rather than heavier weight. But I'm not opposed to it, and I have dabbled in it a little bit. So just seeing what SealFit was about when I looked at it online, most what I could find about it was it's just a CrossFit style, but for endurance. So you're not gonna, just kill yourself with excess weight, for 20 minutes on a HIIT routine or anything like that. And from looking at the book, it does look like that the routines will get longer over time. A lot of things that it prides itself on is just becoming balanced, breath control, meditation, and also the importance of practicing yoga just for stretching out. Also, it says that it's expressed a little bit better in the books, but it helps with developing emotional resiliency. The whole concept, your mind's pretty much just going to go wherever, or your body's going to go further than your mind will lead, if that makes sense. So pretty much just to give a better insight of the book as well. Now, when I looked online before I even got the training book, there is more to it than just, working out. It's not just, here's your routine that you're going to follow for the next 8 weeks. It tries to get people who are new to working out on the on-ramp of getting familiarized and comfortable with things as well. And for the most part, the 8 Weeks to Sealfit book does a good job of that. Some things it kind of is hit or miss on, and that's up to individuals to just kind of research for themselves. But for all in all, it does a good job. So I'll just go over the chapters real quick before we get into the workouts and everything. So chapter 1 is pretty much just titled Embracing the Suck. It gives a story about Bud's initiation training and, you know, the feeling that people have gone through walking into it. Second one is a second part that elaborates upon as a baseline screening. Pretty much this is to set yourself up with judging yourself, just seeing what you can and can't do, and familiarizing before you get into the good grit of the workouts, so you don't go in and think you can do more than you can and then end up injuring yourself. Another thing is it explains the importance of balanced training, you know, getting your strength and your stamina and your fortitude all in line, so again, you don't try to over push yourself or do more than you can and, you know, potentially quit. And this is one thing I actually do like about the books, where I'm going to say here a couple times, is there's stories throughout where it gives you a perspective of other people who have gone through this training or SEAL training or Kokoro camp or something, just so, you know, you feel like you're not alone in the whole journey. So there's a story about how an individual was able to set new baselines for themselves through struggle and success, how they just kind of came into a scenario thinking that they couldn't do it. They went in, you know, skeptical and came out twice as strong, and for the next time they started noticing that not only their strength was building, but also their perspective and their confidence as well. Then at the end, it, you know, emphasizes that SealFit, when approaching it, it's kind of a way of life, not necessarily just a workout, where, again, they're not just going to throw, you know, just workout standards for you to do. They're going to express, you know, physically, this is how you should feel, this is how you should grow as an individual, and this is how you should think in response to it. And not only, you know, post and everything involved, just during the exercise, this is how you should feel about your journey, whether it's the good or the bad. So moving on to chapter 2, it's labeled out Forging a Warrior Mindset. There's 2 stories to start. Pretty much the first one is a scenario where, you know, individual was going through SEALs, and it was the night before SEALs Hell Week and everything he's gone through before, and just his mind process and just setting the standard for all that. Second story was when it was the next day, and this individual was actually going through Hell Week, and how they had to fall back onto their training of what they've learned about, you know, goal visualizations and, you know, questions that they were just asking themselves to, you know, hype themselves up, get through it, and embrace the suck, more or less. So the next thing that they covered in there was the key traits of a warrior mindset and how they differ from just, you know, your everyday go-by mindset. Then it also talked about how you're defining your SOP, your standard operation procedure, before training. Pretty much this just emphasized that before you go into training with any routine that you do in the gym or anything like that, that you want to define your goals, establish your state of mind, you know, just kind of reset yourself, get ready for, you know, the importance of your training and what you're trying to approach on. Hype yourself up, you know, you can focus, and, you know, also familiarize yourself with the routine. And, you know, in the beginning of my journey, I had a problem with this as well, was just jumping into the routine and not being fully realized on what I was about to do, or forgetting it halfway through, and it kind of slows down the momentum, and, you know, it's just kind of good to familiarize yourself. So then it also gives you a workout routine to do as well. And for these chapters as well, these workout routines that they have you do, if you're any kind of gym goer at all, you can attempt these if you want, but they're pretty simple. They're only like 3 routines, if that, and most of them don't even use weight. They're just body weight exercises that sit you through a circuit. So the next thing that they cover is mental preparation and the steps that you can use to again, get ready for any kind of hardship that you're going to go through and the things you should look for growth-wise. Then it finishes with a story of how using successful mental preparation helped an individual through training, and again, how they just saw results when they fell back on their training. Now, one thing I will say about this chapter is when it does cover the area about traits and skills for mental preparation, it gives you the basics of it, and it's really good for, you know, just one book and what it's trying to emphasize upon. But if you want in-depth, where it's going to go into just way better detail in every dynamic that you can think of how your mind's going to turn against you, anything that you need to just psych yourself up, or just running mantras or anything like that, again, I recommend getting Unbeatable Mind. This book will cover all that in far greater detail if you need it. But if you're already used to that sort of thing, like I have been in the past, then, you know, this does a good job of summarizing it. So, moving on to Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is Staying in the Fight. So this starts with 2 stories again. The first one is around a Kokoro camp attendee who quit, you know, just about halfway through because of emotional stress. Pretty much it was just emphasizing that, you know, as you go through a Kokoro camp, which is about a 3-day, you know, civilian version of SEAL boot camp or Hell Week, he was doing good and his mind just turned against him. And he just couldn't embrace the suck, and, you know, for the long haul of everything that was involved, he just decided it wasn't worth it anymore and just quit, because the hard got harder, which is kind of expected. So then the second story was talking about, again, addressing this as well, and one of the things that it shows in detail about how to embrace the suck and, you know, mind games is applying humor to a workout. And I've actually found myself doing this a lot. Whenever things just get really hard and really grueling and I can't physically push any harder, I will still push harder. And I will, instead of thinking about something in my mind that's, you know, normal of, hey, you know, get up and, you know, get to it, you know, be a warrior, be a mindset. Sometimes you just have to lose your mind and lose yourself and then just laugh about it, and, you know, laugh about a joke or, you know, just something that'll just get you smiling and forgetting about it, because for that moment, you just need to get out of yourself. So then it follows with another exercise, and upon this exercise, it also shows you how to define your dominant traits and pretty much how to redefine all your other traits accordingly, because everybody's got pros and cons that they can work off of, and you know, it doesn't matter how good you are in certain areas. If your bad areas are bad, it's just going to throw a wrench in everything. And it kind of shows you how to define those areas and how to work with them and, you know, go through the process a little bit, you know, better. So, then the last part of it gives you tips on developing emotional resiliency. Again, it goes into pretty good detail about this, but if you want the hardcore detail, I advise to get the Unbeatable Mind book. At the end of it, it has a workout to get set on as well. Chapter 4, pretty much is called Training Isn't Working Out. And this starts with 2 stories. First one, it actually talks about Mark Divine himself and how he used awareness control that saved his life while in the military. This is actually one of my more favorite story so far out of the book. It talked about when he was in a SEAL unit and he was up on the mountains and things went wrong real quick, and he recalled his training and pretty much ended up surviving, obviously, but really good story. The second story was telling about a friend of Mark Divine's, pretty much just showing how he was, as most everyday Joes are when they try to get involved with training. He was talking to Mark about just wanting to work out, while Mark was talking about, well, you should really look to redefine yourself as well. So try something like SEALFit or something similar where it's a lifestyle change, not just a go to the gym kind of situation. And more or less it ended how everyone could have thought. He had no focus, no plan, no idea of really what he wanted. He just had the idea of, I need to get into better shape, and that's it. That's all he went with. And in the end, he failed. A little bit later, he did come back and talk to him about his, failing areas, and he did get back on the ball again. Doesn't really say if he got involved with SealFit or anything, but it was more or less just to define that the importance of having some kind of mindset and goal have to be there in order for there to be change. So then after that, there was actually a good quote from the book that emphasized upon, training. I'll just go ahead and read that one real quick. Training is passionately applying carefully conceived principles to develop yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. It cultivates a deep awareness of your inner and outer worlds and aligns these worlds into a serious force. You show up as exceptional every day. Really good quote, really inspirational. The end part about showing up exceptional every day, I believe that's true to an extent, because nobody's perfect. Nobody can go 100% every day. And even for me, when I'm burnt out and I just can't get it all together, those are the days where it's still, I push myself to go to the gym when I have that goal that needs to get done. And depending on what your view of exceptional is, it might not fit that standard, but again, it's all up to perception. I mean, because exceptional could just simply be that, showing up when others won't, So that can be taken many ways, but still a good quote nonetheless. So then the other area it talks about is how to find passion in your training and purpose, which this area I actually liked a lot because it's kind of hard to explain to people, especially when you're in the early stages of your workout journey, that the easiest way to get through your training and everything is just to have passion in what you do. And a lot of people they just don't find that. They don't find any kind of personal accomplishment, enjoyment, nothing out of training, running, lifting, whatever. But it's like you kind of have to make a game out of it sometimes, because who just wants to do what they don't want to do day in and day out? You got to kind of find something for yourself that defines that inner spark. So the next thing it covers is the principles of training and evaluating the differences in the areas of training when you're in the gym or running or whatever. So they pretty much cover your strength, functional movement, work capacity, endurance, and mental toughness. They go into pretty good detail about it. Can't really complain about any of it. Next area comes up is Mark establishes the 80-20 rule when it comes to just working out, and 80% effort, over 20%, and works pretty well. Then the last part it covers is how and when to use breathing focus, which this is actually covered a lot in yoga training as well, that a lot of people, when they go through stress and they go through struggles, their breathing isn't as efficient, which a lot of people who are very new just don't know that, you need air, obviously, to get your blood flowing and recovery and focus and everything. And if you can keep your breath under control through stressful situations, it's really going to help you in the long run of everything. And it gives you techniques of how to, keep a rhythm, how to breathe into your diaphragm, and just everything like that. Really good, useful information. Then, of course, the chapter ends with talking about your workout program that you're going to do. And again, simple workout. So, chapter 5, labeled The 5 Mountains, starts off with one story this time. And it pretty much talks about how the Kokoro camp and spirit developed by Mark Divine, of how he pretty much wanted to create the civilian version of SEAL training, but for more civilian standard. Then it talks about the 5 mountains and defines them in more detail. It talks about the 10 demands of mastery for yourself and for the mountains as well. Kind of intertwines there. The next thing it covers is pretty pretty much respecting the effort and the journey of everything that's involved with training, as well as your mindset. And again, this had a really good quote that I'd like to read off. So in regards to that one, when you respect yourself, you will respect others more deeply. The spiral of growth and success personally and socially spins upward. Learn to appreciate the journey as much as the destination. Okay, so the next thing that it covers is the emphasis on momentum, about how upping the intensity is okay as long as it's accurate and efficient. Pretty much just describing that don't try to throw too much weight on there if it's going to potentially injure you or slow down your progress. Then it ends with another simple workout. So chapter 6 covers SEAL fuel. In this, the first two stories, Mark Divine talks about how he transitioned from eating just garbage food to quality food and the differences he noticed. The second story talks about how an individual wanted to get involved with Kokoro Camp, called him with advice about it, and how he told him that pretty much he should look to cut out milk and grain from his diet to fuel himself better. The guy was kind of skeptical about it, but Mark emphasized upon the importance. Really in this section, it tries to support the idea of more or less the paleo diet, just simple eating for fueling your body. And, even Mark Divine said that for most people, this is optimal, but it's not practical. Most people aren't going to just jump onto a diet, train, and restrict themselves accordingly. And he said that that's okay, as long as most people try to stick to the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you're eating good, quality food, and the other 20%, not so much, and it just kind of evens out. So he does, sympathize with people's eating habits. Then he advises for most people, if they just wanted to start, to, replace wheat with rice and beans. Then he goes on to support again with a story that if diet is too rigid, that it will fail in the end, and that people should be realistic with their fuel. Then he talks about the importance of refueling post-workout. He doesn't really give too much information about the exact dynamics of it. Over the years, I've, come to find that typically what I roll on is, to have fast digesting carbs with a protein source within 20 minutes. But depending on how new some people are to exercising, they might not know that. So, for stuff like that, you might have to look for another source because it doesn't go into too much detail about that. Then there's another exercise and workout to end it. So the final chapter before we get involved with the training is called the on-ramp training, chapter 7. Pretty much this assesses your level of fitness and building upon a 5x5 strength routine. So pretty much a 5-set routine of 5 reps, just experimenting with a bunch of exercises to get your baseline. Then he goes on to talk about the importance of scaling exercises to your weaknesses, also your exercise equipment. So not everyone's going to be able to do some of these exercises right off the get-go, and they're going to have to do, easier versions of it. Push-ups, for example, talks about if you can't do a full push-up, do them on your knees. Same concept, just a little easier. Also, talks about that in the back of the book, there's a index talking about exercises that you can do instead of the ones that are required in case you don't have the gym equipment for it, which is also really useful because some of the equipment, just looking at it, I don't have in the gym. Then it goes on to talk about the importance of avoiding your ego just to avoid injury. Again, not throwing on too heavy weight just to prove something to someone else, yourself, whatever. Just go at your own rate and assess yourself accordingly. Push hard, but be smart about it. Goes on to talk about the importance of fueling yourself with your water intake and your post-protein. Goes into a little bit more detail this time about it, but still, if you want really grand detail about it, you have to look for other sources. Then then goes on to talk about the importance of, just resting. This program isn't going to be, 7 days a week. Looking at it, it's going to be Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday you have off. So just the importance of recovering efficiently, resting, getting good sleep, everything like that. And then the final thing is it evaluates upon yoga and stretching. For this area, it has 4 forms of sequences for yoga to stretch out. And they do have pictures to show you everything, and it does give you a reference to look on the SealFit website for a few more routines. So that is good if you're absolutely new to yoga. It'll help you out, just for what you need to do. Luckily for my circumstances, I actually have a 12-week yoga training program. It's not the SealFit yoga, but it's just a different style. And, from that perspective, I could say the more that you do know about yoga, the more it's going to help you in your recovery, because you can do stretches that'll hit certain areas that are just on fire from your workout. So it does emphasize about, after every training program, the importance of needing to stretch, and I do support that. So that's pretty much covering the chapters before you get started on your SealFit training. And I'll make a separate video for that as well. But just to give a coverage of that, just getting started. It looks like it's going to be an interesting journey, and we'll see how it goes from here, and how I recommend it, just based on my goals and what I'm aiming for. So, until the next video.